And we're just recording so that people will be able to see our friends and families that were not able to join us today can go back and watch the session later on. And we're gonna go ahead and get started. Good evening. Thank you for joining us today for this Crosby Scholar student and parent session. My name is Jessica Fisher, and I'm the high school program coordinator for Crosby Scholars. I oversee the programming for all 9th and 10th graders. Before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and turn our session over to Mrs. Stokes, who's going to give a brief hello, and then we're going to get started.
All right. Thank you, Jessica. Hi, everybody. It's nice to see you this evening. As Jessica just said, this is a high school session. And as you all probably know, I'm the middle school coordinator. So I asked if Jessica would just let me hop on and say hello to you all. I've worked with many of your students, some for 1, 2, or 3 years. It's time for them to move on into high school. You will be in the capable hands of our high school coordinator. And we're excited that you're here tonight and you're carrying on this enthusiasm and excitement for your future and your college path on into high school. So I just wanted to say hello. I'm still at Crosby. Those of you that I know, I'm still around and also available if you ever want to talk to me or send me an email, but just kind of passing you off or ushering you into the high school program now. And thank you, Jessica, for letting me say hello to everybody, and I'll let you continue on with the session. Thanks, Jessica.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mrs. Stokes. We always love to have that kind of meshing of the two programs at this point in the year, so we're excited to have her pass you off to me. As I mentioned again, if we have any new friends, my name is Jessica Fisher. I'm the high school program coordinator. We're happy to have you join us today as we kick off our Hello High School programming series, which is our transition to high school for our rising freshmen. We want to just help you learn all that you can and ease your any worries that you may have or anxieties that you may have about transitioning to high school, and remind you that it's going to be an awesome experience. After today, we're going to have some more Hello High School sessions. The next one is going to be on July the 27th. It's going to be led by the Director of Student Services at Parkland High School. Her name is Mrs. Keisha Horton, and she's going to be leading us through a presentation about High School 101. So everything that you might need to know about high school. You can sign up for that program if you haven't already in your Crosby Scholar student portal. Before we get started, I just wanted to quickly go over the Crosby Scholars requirements. They are essentially the same as middle school, but I do like to mention them at the beginning of every Crosby session. So scholars must attend one virtual or in-person academy. Our academies for 9th and 10th graders will start in September this year. So that's an important month to remember. Academies will start in September for you all this year. Secondly, you'll have to do 2 hours of community service. That's going to be due by May the 13th of 2022. So at just 2 hours, you can do more if you're able to, but just 2 hours of service due on May the 13th. We do have an online form that you can submit. You don't have to submit the paper form, but if you do want to submit that paper form, you are more than welcome to do so. All right, let's see, where am I in my notes? If you have any information that you need from Crosby Scholars, you can always log into your Crosby Scholar student portal. Hopefully within the next week or two, you will see the switch from middle school to high school. So at some point this year, over the next 2 weeks, we'll have our kind of grade change where you're going to be switching from 8th grade to 9th grade, and you'll start to see all of the high school information that you need. And then you'll just log in for registering for your events. All right, that's all the housekeeping things that I have for you today. I'm gonna go ahead and kick us off for our student panel, our parent panel, which is why you're here today. We have 2 awesome parents here. They're Crosby Scholar. They're very involved with Crosby Scholars in various ways. So I'm gonna give them both an opportunity to introduce themselves. So Candace, if you'll go first and introduce yourself and just let them know a little bit about yourself and about your student and where she attends.
All right. Hi, my name is Candace Shaw. My daughter is a Crosby Scholar. She is a rising junior at Atkins High School. I myself am also a Crosby Scholar alumni, as well as I am a school counselor.
Yes, and Candace is also one of our senior advisors, so she does a lot with Crosby, and we're really excited to have her here today. And then Paul, go ahead and introduce yourself and let us know about your students.
Sure. So my name is Paul Gauthier. I am a parent of twin daughters. They have finished the Crosby Scholars Program. They've also finished their first year. They both went to Wake Forest University, which incidentally is where I am right now. I work in the admissions office at Wake Forest. I promise I didn't make them come to Wake Forest. They both collectively came to that decision on their own, but it was a fun process, and I promise that you will all survive the next 4 years because I did.
That's great to hear. And then on our call also, we have Diana, who is my awesome assistant. She is a recent graduate of Winston-Salem State University. She's a former Crosby Scholar from North Forsyth High School. So we may have some questions for Diana too. We may get some tips from you as well. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started with our first question. I will let you know if you have questions for our panelists today, or if you have any Crosby related questions for me or for Diana, please go ahead and feel free to put them in the chat box. I'll be monitoring that today as I do have a list of questions that we're going to go over. However, if you have any questions that you would like answered, we would much prefer to get to your questions. So feel free to put them in the chat box. If any students have questions on here, you're more than welcome to get those answered. And before we start, go ahead and in the chat box, put your high school or your student's high school, where they will be attending this year. I'm curious. I'd like to get that information. Oh, lots of Atkins, Camels. All right, West Forsyth. Awesome. Go Titans. Glenn, lots of Atkins, Reagan. Oh, good. Reagan, East. Reynolds, nice. North, okay. I don't see any Spartans in the house. That's where I went to school. No Spartans. Parkland, awesome. NCLA, great, welcome. Reagan, West, Tabor. Okay, Tabor, let's go. I promise I'm not biased, I promise. All right, so great. So we're really excited to have you all here. We have a nice mixture of schools, and so it's great to see that. The one thing that I do want to remind everyone is that every school does have a Crosby liaison, every school that we work with, and that liaison is a counselor at the school that is responsible for, kind of communicating with Crosby and with the school, and you'll be introduced to that person at the beginning of the year. All right, so we're going to jump in. This question is going to be for Candace. I'm going to have you both answer, but Candace, I'll have you go first. In what ways did your student schedule change when they entered high school, and how did you help your student adjust to their more demanding schedule?
All right, so for high school, I just tried to help my daughter with a little bit more organization. I know sometimes in middle school, students, they receive agenda books, but in high school, I introduced like the Google Calendar or either the calendar attached to her email, encourage her to use that, or even just to write down her homework assignments, to write down when she had her sports practices, different things like that. So I just made sure I stayed really involved with her. And this may be a little bit too much, but I also attached her email address to my email. I kept her email on my phone. I made sure I had access, just kind of to maybe micromanage a little bit, but I just wanted to make sure, especially her freshman year, she kept up with everything. So that was my way of doing it.
And just a follow-up question, did she have any challenges transitioning from kind of having that paper planner, that she had versus going to an electronic, kind of planner?
She didn't really have any challenges, but she started off doing a little bit of both. And then after she felt comfortable, she just transitioned completely to just doing it on the calendar. So.
Awesome, great. Okay. All right, Paul, same question. In what ways did your student schedules change, and how did you help them, deal with their more demanding schedule?
It's an interesting question for me, and my answer is maybe a little bit atypical. My daughters went to Paisley for middle school, and they went to Parkland for high school. They were part of the IB program. And so actually their 9th and 10th grade was very much like their 7th and 8th grade years, because they were still at Paisley in that kind of specialized program. And so they were really big kids when they were in the 9th and 10th grade on their explicit campus. And it wasn't really until the 11th grade that they had the kind of prototypical high school experience. The good news for everybody is that your students will be much better rested as high schoolers because of the bus times and things like that. The rigor did step up a little bit though. And all I can tell you is that from my experience is that there's not a one size fits all. There's, it looks like 50 some odd people in the room and you all have 50 unique children in the room. I did have one that was type A that I had to do very little monitoring. And then the other one, I think, was probably more like me when I was a high school student. I needed to have a mom and dad that was checking in on me and making certain that I was staying on top of my homework. I was a classic procrastinator all through college, really, even. And unfortunately, my genetic makeup came back to bite me with that one. And so we had to make certain that she was kind of staying on task a little bit. But your sons and daughters so much better than we do. And so, be happy if you have the one that is totally self-directed, but don't be surprised if some of your own genetic makeup goes into a son and daughter, and you might be frustrated by your son or daughter in the same way that your parent frustrated with you years and years ago.
That's definitely fair. The apple doesn't fall too far. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box. All right, let's talk a little bit about extracurriculars. And Paul, I'm glad that you mentioned IB, the IB program, because we are going to talk about that in just a few minutes. But let's move on to extracurriculars. Can you just give us an idea of the types of activities that your students were involved in or are involved in? And if you had any hand in helping them select them. So Paul, I'll let you go first, and then Candace, you can follow up.
This is an instance where my daughters probably took much more after my wife. I was the kid that wanted to play sports all the time, and only one of my daughters did any sport over the 4 years. One of my daughters did swimming for 2 of the years while she was in high school. I think having made a lot of mistakes myself when I was in high school, one of the pieces of advice that I had for my daughters was, don't overextend yourself with extracurriculars. Your primary responsibility as a high school student is that student side of things. A lot of times people, I think, have difficulty saying no to things. And I think that was a lesson that I tried to instill in my daughters at an early stage. Don't do things that you really aren't interested in. And so, one of my daughters, her primary focus was probably guitar. She was actually doing it outside of school a lot. It's, I guess, an extracurricular, but kind of a solo one that fits her personality. The other one did some swim team. They both did things that had much more kind of time commitment, much fewer kind of time commitments. I think that was one of the things that maybe made their high school experience the easiest, in that they had time after school most days and in the evening to do the homework that they were responsible for. A lot fewer of the kind of almost nightmare scenarios where you hear of a student who has a sport after school and then they're doing the play in the evening. And so about 10 o'clock at night, they start doing their homework and they're up until 2 or 3 in the morning. I don't think that's what high school students should be doing. The sleep is probably the best predictor and so super important at this age. If you can underschedule them, if you can get them to not take on too many extracurricular commitments, I think you're solving half of the problems.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul. And Candace, same question.
Okay, so I'm going to answer this as a school counselor as well as a parent. I encourage my daughter to go to like the schools. They may have some type of auxiliary fair or a fair that introduces the different clubs and the different sports. So I encouraged my daughter to go to that. And at that point, she was able to choose what club she wanted to be in. There, of course, she knew she was going to be in Crosby Scholars. So she was going to continue with that. And there were other clubs that she was interested in. My daughter too, is a swimmer, so she automatically chose the swim team, which another thing about some of these practices, like swim team, they practice at 7 o'clock in the morning at Atkins. So, that's really early for some students. So they have to adjust to that timing. The same thing with some other sports practices. They may practice early or they may practice after school. So there's a balance with all of that. And what I always tell my daughter, as well as what I tell other students, you are a student athlete. You're a student first. So you have to make sure your academics comes first, because at the end of the day, whether you're in clubs, whether you're playing sports, you have to do the academics. And if you're not maintaining a particular GPA or particular grades, you may not have a chance to play those sports. You may not have a chance to be in that particular club. And the same thing with band. I know lots of students love to be in the band, which I encourage it. I was a band student myself when I was in high school, but band takes up a lot of time. So just students have to make sure they are organized. They have to make sure they realize how much band practice, how much time that takes, and they have to try to do their homework and do whatever they need to do in between times. I know some schools, such as Atkins, they have study hall right after school. So they have, during that study hall time, students are supposed to be doing their tutoring, they can do their homework. I'm not sure if other schools have that, but whenever there's a break in between your time before you go to practice, students need to utilize that break. And that can help them and keep them from being up at 2 o'clock in the morning, such as what Paul said. So I just want parents and students to kind of think about that. And of course, don't overload yourself. Freshman year, that's very important. You're transitioning into a high school, as a high school student. So try not to overload yourself. You may be able to add on one club or one sport each year, but don't do all 4 sports in 1 year. Plus 3 clubs, that's a little too much for a freshman.
And Candace, just from your counselor experience, can you just briefly touch on, kind of leadership roles and taking an active role in those extracurriculars, as far as, the things that colleges might be looking for in students?
Oh, yes. If a student has a chance to take on a leadership role, I encourage them. Maybe not necessarily go straight for trying to be vice president or president your freshman year, but you can start off as some of those smaller roles. It's like an ambassador, or if there's like a secretary, a note taker, any small role that you're able to take on. Try it your freshman year and build up until your senior year.
Great, thanks. And just as Candace mentioned, at the beginning of the year, you will start to hear information about those auxiliary fairs or activities fairs that you can attend. So just, keep your ears to the ground about those opportunities, and they typically happen during the school day. I know at West Forsyth, they have the Titan Tailgate, which is usually at a football game. And so a few hours before the football game, they'll have an activities fair as well. So different schools do different things. So just make sure that you're on the lookout for that. Great. Again, I'll mention if you have any questions, I'm assuming that we're just answering all of your questions right now. And if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box. All right, we're going to move on to relationships with student counselors. And so, Candace, this will be, again, a little bit in your area, but we're going to start with Paul. Can you just kind of describe your relationship with your counselor, if your student's counselor, if you had one, or maybe your girls kind of took on that relationship, and just kind of talk about what role that person played in helping your students succeed?
This is not what other people ought to be doing. This is what I did. I mean, I was very hands-off in my role as a parent. Part of it's because professionally I work in the admissions field, and if I felt there had been a gap, I could have stepped in and helped them out. Most of you don't work in the admissions field. Most of you shouldn't want to work in the admissions field. But because of that, you absolutely will want the advice and the expertise that the counselors can give to your families. I think my daughters were really well supported. We had those kind of conversations at the dinner table, but I definitely was a hands-off parent. I wasn't the one that was calling the counselors and asking for individual meetings and those sorts of things. I knew enough about the Crosby Scholars Program because I've worked with them some, and just because of the conversations I had at the dinner table, that I knew that they were receiving really thoughtful advice and being well cared for. So my personal relationship was almost non-existent, but I am forever thankful for the guidance that they were receiving.
Awesome. We love to hear that. Thanks so much. All right, Candace.
All right, so I think it's very important that parents try to at least form a relationship with their counselor, whether it's through an email or even setting up an appointment. You don't necessarily have to hover over your student or micromanage or anything, but just trying to let the counselor and the teachers know that you are involved with your student. At the beginning of the year, the teacher will probably send some type of contact form or even send an email to the parent just to kind of introduce themselves and make sure they have the right information for you. So it's very important that parents try to respond to that teacher email, as well as reaching out to the counselor. A lot of times the information in Power School has not been updated in a while. So when when counselors and teachers are trying to reach out to parents, they may not have the correct information. So just reaching out, saying, hi, I'm so-and-so's parent, something as simple as that. If you have any type of concerns or any questions, it's okay to set up a meeting with the counselor. It just shows that you're an involved parent, and it's not something that it's not like you're annoying us or anything when parents do that, but it is good to have some type of relationship with your it's good to have a type of relationship with the counselor.
Great, thank you. We did get a couple questions in the chat box, so I'm gonna go ahead and answer those. One of our questions was, what happens if students are not able to attend Academy in September? And so that question is for me. That is okay if you can't attend in September. We're going to have them pretty much all fall and a little bit in the spring as well. So if you can't attend them in September, we'll have some in September. That'll really be kind of our kickoff month, and especially since it's been a year since we really had these in-person programmings, we'll use September to kind of ease back into it. But we will be having academies all throughout the fall and potentially in the spring a lot in the spring as well. So we will make sure to get your academy. We accommodate students as much as we can. We know that you are very busy, you have things going on, so we do as much as we can to make sure that you're able to meet your academy requirement. So no worries there. And then another question, a student just asked if this session was going to be recorded, and it is being recorded, and we are going to share it. We're going to upload it to YouTube and be sure to share it on our website, and we'll send the link in an email as well. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about coursework. Candace, I'm going to let you go first and talk about Gabby's experience at Atkins. You can kind of share anything that you have, to share about Atkins and their coursework, or I know they have different tracks, and we have a lot of Atkins families on here, so they may be curious to hear kind of some information about the coursework. So if you can share, and then Paul, I do want you to share a lot about the IB program as well, so I'll have you follow up.
All right, so as far as with Atkins, as you may know, you have to choose a major. So the students that are currently planning to attend Atkins, I'm assuming they probably already chosen their major. So they'll follow that track all the way through. As far as with my daughter, she's a health science major. So she has a chance to do like health science, forensics, all of that stuff. Most of Atkins courses, many of them are honors courses. So it's good as far as with knowing your students' ability. Don't have them to take too many honors classes and you know that they're not necessarily an honor student. And the same thing with AP. Try introducing them to maybe I would say like one AP class, maybe their sophomore or junior year, if you want them to try to go to that level. And the same thing with freshman year. Students are only able to take one AP course, which is AP World History, during their freshman year. Try not to overload your student, because again, like we were talking about earlier, extracurricular activities, just to transition to high school, all of that can be a little overwhelming for students. So try not to overload them with too many honors classes, too many AP courses, unless you know your student can truly do it. And then once they prove after their freshman year that they can do it, that's when you can add on and build on as far as with the rigor. So Jessica, did I answer that question?
Yes, yes,
I don't
yes,
know
you
if I got off as far as talking
You did,
about
you
counseling
did.
fees. Okay.
All right, Paul, you can chat about the IB program and if you have any insights to share about why you chose that program for your daughters.
So my daughters, I would say, were not STEM focused at an early age. And so Atkins was probably not going to be the right fit for them. I was an English major in college. My wife was an English major in college. And we were attracted to the IB curriculum. In some respects, we made a decision in middle school to send them to Paisley, which is the pre-IB school in Winston-Salem. And so they started to get a taste of what the IB curriculum might be like. I would say its curriculum is very kind of globally focused, very writing intensive, very kind of critical thought. You learn how to think and how to argue. One of the classes that they take on the high school level is called Theory of Knowledge. How do we learn? How do we come to decisions? And so it was appealing to my wife and I. In the middle school level, we didn't give our daughters much say in where they were going to go to middle school. One of my daughters actually asked me at that point, do we get a little bit of say in where we go to middle school? Because none of their friends were going to Paisley, and we said there wasn't a way to give them a little bit of say. But we would have given them a lot of say on the high school level if they had said that was it. I know a lot of students who will leave Paisley and go on to Tabor or Atkins or any of the other schools in the area, and they are quite successful because I think they're well prepared for whatever high school they might go to. But my daughters, I think, probably within a year or so, really thought that we'd made the right decision. They felt like they saw the world differently than they did prior to that. And I think the extension of the IB program at Parkland continued that for them. I mean, it's a challenging curriculum. I would say IB courses are equivalent of AP level courses. And so junior, senior year, it's a lot of work that they were going through. It's definitely not for everyone. Not everybody has to, work to try to be number one in their class. I had a daughter that was definitely, that was one of her targets early on, even in middle school. And I don't know where she got that from, because it wasn't from me and it wasn't from my wife. We were not kind of the classic perfectionist that she's become. So, I mean, that would be one of the things I would say. One of the greatest things that I think the IB program does is what's called the extended essay. By the time they graduate, they have to write a 3,000 to 4,000 word paper. And in some respects, I think that is the one piece of the IB curriculum, maybe with an exclamation point, that has best prepared them for college. My wife talks about going into college, and the first time she was assigned like a 6-page paper, she didn't know how to write it. She went to a school where they taught the 5-paragraph essay, which might be a 2 to 3-page paper. And to be assigned a 6-page paper and not know how to extend it beyond 5 paragraphs was frightening for her. And so the writing skills that they attained at Parkland through the IB program was really appealing to us. And I'm glad that my daughter stuck with it and enjoyed it. And it seems to have made the first year at Wake, I don't want to say easy for them, but the transition to college life was comfortable academically.
Great, thank you so much for sharing that. We did have a question in the chat and that I would love Candace to respond to from her counselor's eye. The question is, what is the difference between AP and honors courses?
The difference between AP and honors courses is the rigor of the courses. AP stands for advanced placement, and with advanced placement at the end of the course, which is typically the end of the school year, because many AP courses are year long, the students will have a chance to take an AP exam. And if they score a 3 or higher on the AP exam, they could possibly receive college credit for that particular course. AP weight and honors weight is different. AP weight is 0.5 higher than the honors weight. So for example, an AP A will be worth maybe 5 points. The honors is 4.5 and the standard is 4. And this is just for the letter grade of an A. So again, AP is a little bit more difficult. There's AP courses offered in certain subjects. Not necessarily every class has an AP course, but if you take a look at the curriculum guide from the school system, it's on the Winston-Salem Forsyth County School website. It lists, has a list of all the AP courses, a list of what courses are honors, and it gives a description of the courses.
Great, thank you so much. And just two quick comments that I hope that you were able to see. Just make sure that you're encouraging your scholar to get involved in activities that they enjoy. The title of the club is not as important as the impact that they make or the difference that they're making in their school or their school community. So just wanted to highlight that point. And then also encouraging your scholar to enroll in the most challenging courses in which they can be most successful. So, you know, not loading them up with APs if that's not going to be the best option for them. Candace, this may be another question for you. I made the mistake and put my child in all honors classes. Who do I reach out to change that?
The student will have a chance to, you and the student will have a chance to change the schedule, possibly at the very beginning of the school year. It's okay to have honors courses for your student. Teachers and counselors also look at the test scores to kind of determine whether or not a student can be, should be in honors courses. If the counselor doesn't agree that if the counselor doesn't agree that the student should be in honors courses, there's a form that the student, counselor, and the parent can sign to pretty much say that the parent agrees with the student being in the courses. But again, you will have a chance to change your student's schedule. You may not be able to change all courses, but you will have a chance to look at the schedule and change it.
Thanks, Candace. One more question, I'm sorry. We have another question from a parent who has a question about their student's summer reading assignment. They have reached out to the school and have not heard back about the summer reading assignment in their honors English course. Do you have any insight about who they should reach out to follow up about their summer reading?
I would say you can reach out to the counseling director. Typically, the counseling director is a 12-month person. So they should be there throughout the summer. So I would say maybe email the director, possibly tomorrow, or even call up there. Continue trying to email, if you know who the AP or that English teacher is, who you can just try to email that teacher, but start off with the counseling director.
Great. And we did have another question similarly. Who should I speak with to find out what classes my son is enrolled in? I think reaching out to the counseling office. The family is new to the area and they've made attempts to reach out to the school. I would say the counseling office. Candace, do you have anything differently?
Schedules will be distributed possibly at this very beginning of the school year. Maybe more than some schools do it during open house. So whenever schedules are out, that's when they will know what classes they're in. Power School is down right now, so students can't check their Power School account to see what courses they're enrolled in. And they don't necessarily need to go by that because it can be incorrect, but just wait until your schedule comes out. Try not to bother the counselors right now unless it's a dire emergency because they're working on scheduling. But once open house happens, then you'll know what your schedule is.
Great, thanks. And specific, this is about the summer reading assignments. I believe there is a page on the school system's website. I'm going to try to search it in just a quick second about the summer assignments. But for honors courses, is that something that's typical, or is that you think on a case by case based on the school? The summer assignment, Candace, I'm sorry.
Summer assignments are typically case by case. Each school will have a different format. So again, you can possibly maybe even email the principal, assistant principal, because again, all staff does not work throughout the summer. And I'm going to answer another question that I just saw. again, schedules are not out right now. So if your student does not have their schedule, that's perfectly normal. They're not going to get their schedule right now. It typically, each school is different, but considering that we're just coming off of a COVID year, everything gets a little mixed up. So students may not have their schedule until actual open house. They may not be mailed out prior to. It could just be open house. So you don't have to reach out to the school to look for the schedule. They'll get it at open house.
Great. And open house is typically the week before school. We will make sure to send out that actual date, the specific date of open house. For freshmen, you will generally have an orientation. It may look a little bit different, again, because we are a little bit post-COVID. So just be on the lookout for information from your school. I would say check your school's website frequently as they make updates over the summer. Again, a lot of school staff is not there, office staff is not there, so you just have to be a little bit patient. And we definitely don't want all of our Crosby families to try to reach out to the schools right now. They might be a little bit upset with us. So give them just a little bit of time. And if you do still continue to have questions by the end of the summer, reach out to Crosby and we can help guide you in that way. All right, this parent asked about what do you recommend for your students staying on task with assignments? Are students able to use their phone to add assignments to their calendar?
I'll answer it. Each school is different, each classroom is different, but typically there is a school rule. I can only speak for Atkins because that's where my daughter attended. At Atkins, there was a red card, green card. When the red card is out, students cannot have their phones out. Green card is out, they can have their phones out. So if students are inputting data in their phones during the green card, that's fine. Otherwise, many assignments are actually on Canvas. So, and Canvas has a calendar. So honestly, the students may not have to put it in their own device. They can just pull up Canvas on their laptop whenever they get home, however they decide to stay organized. But I did just remember that Canvas has everything and they list all assignments.
Great, awesome. Let's see. There was a question here about report cards. I believe report cards have already gone out. I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to get back with you on that question about report cards. I know that there are grades in Power School, so I'll get back with you about that specific question about report cards. But I can imagine that they were mailed out at the end of the year, and I see some parents shaking heads. So yes, so I believe that report cards were sent out. Tutoring services, do either of you have any insight or any, information about how your students, overcame any challenges that they received in the classroom? Do you have any tutors that you recommend or tutoring services?
There should be a list of tutoring services sometimes at the school. There's like bulletin boards at the schools that have different tutoring services. Also, many of the teachers offer tutoring. If you would like to, each teacher pretty much has office hours or tutoring services. Once you get the student syllabus, take a look at those tutoring hours. The course that your student may need tutoring in, see what they, see when those tutoring hours are. Some teachers have morning tutoring, like from maybe 8:15 to 8:45. Some teachers have the afternoon tutoring from 3:45 to 4:30. But just take a look at the tutoring hours that the teachers offer, and then see whether or not your student will need an outside tutor that you have to pay for. I would say go for the free service first versus having to pay for a tutor.
And I would just echo that exactly. The teachers are awesome. My daughters did make use of both before school and after school kind of tutoring sessions with them. If they were struggling, again, it's my genetic makeup. It was going to be math and science. It was going to be foiling them a little bit. And so they would meet with the experts on it, and please don't ask Dad to do the new math, because that was not what I was taught, and they wouldn't appreciate different methods to solve those sorts of equations at this point anyway. So the teachers typically are doing this because they love doing what they're doing, and they will meet with the students and help them through those sorts of problems.
Yes, and as a person that struggled with math since I was in the 3rd grade, I can attest to that. Your teachers will absolutely help you. You just have to let them know that you're struggling, and they can sometimes see, through your grades, but, you have to make the effort to go out and get that help. So teachers will absolutely help you. We did have a question about Chromebooks. Will students be required to bring Chromebooks to school? That is another question that I'm not sure about. Again, Candace, if you have any insight you can share, but your school will definitely let you know what you're going to need to bring to school every day at the beginning of the year. And again, you will have an orientation that will be the week prior to school starting, and it'll simulate a real school day. And this is assuming that everything will be the same starting in August. However, you will have an orientation, and you'll get all the information you need about what you'll need to bring to school, and what materials and things that you'll need for the start of the school year. Awesome. The first day of the school is August 23rd. Let me just grab my calendar and double check, but I have that ingrained in my head. It's August the 23rd. Yes, August the 23rd. That is the first day of school. That's a great question. So make sure you know when the first day of school is. If you don't have a calendar already, I would go ahead and get you a calendar and get the first day of school in there. And when you get your information about orientation and open house, get that written down in there as well. And we're going to make sure that you guys are ready for that first day of school. Awesome. All right, we're almost at the finish line. We're gonna wrap up. Paul, if you can share maybe any last minute tips, words of wisdom, advice for our rising freshman parents and students that are on here today. Any last things that you have to say?
This is really just reiterating what I said at the beginning, which is make certain that they're not overdoing it. That's both academically and extracurricularly. If they struggled in 8th grade, that means don't sign them up for all the honors courses in the 1 AP they can take their freshman year and say they're just going to turn it on because they're in the 9th grade suddenly. Typically, they don't change that drastically. You want to challenge them as much as they can actually succeed in, and so don't try to turn them into superheroes at the end of the summer. That can spell doom for a student starting off in their freshman year. And it's definitely not a race either. They don't have to, get out and, be ahead of the field in the first couple of months of their freshman year. This is a 4-year process. They will grow, they will develop over this period as well. And frankly, I will tell you that colleges look more seriously at how they're doing in their junior and senior year anyway. Stanford is famous for saying that they don't even look at the grades of the students from the freshman year. That's just one school. You're probably applying to some other colleges. Other colleges will still look at it. So if your student is with you, they should absolutely still be trying in their freshman year, but it becomes more important what they're doing towards the end of that 4-year period. So that would be, I guess, my general advice.
Great. Candace, before I move on to you for last tips, we did have a parent that asked any advice for parents of exceptional children.
The EC case manager should be in contact with your student and with the parent to make sure everything is up to date, their IEP. Make sure you utilize those tutoring services. Make sure your student is receiving the accommodations that have been put together with the IEP team. If you see that your student is struggling, reach out to the case manager, reach out to the teachers to just be very involved. Reach out to the counselor. During high school, many parents seem to be hands off because they want their students to be independent. And this answer is for, what I'm saying is for everyone. I just encourage parents to be involved. Don't be hands off during freshman year, sophomore, junior, or senior year. Still be involved with your students. Still be involved in their course choices, still be involved in everything. Your students still needs you. They need you. And this is the time where they also need you emotionally, because this transition to ninth grade can be rough for some students. The course rigor, students are going through that, as well as students are just going through a lot coming off of COVID. So I'm just going to encourage all parents to be completely involved with their students.
Awesome. Was that your last piece of information too? All
I
bundled
think
together.
so, unless anyone has any other questions.
Yes, I was gonna do one final call for questions before we wrap up. You guys had awesome questions today. I hope that we were able to answer them in the way that you've found helpful. Again, we have recorded this session, so we will be posting it by the end of the week. But again, last call for questions before we round up. Reach out to your school, go to the school's website, scour it, see, what information that you can find prior to school starting. And again, just remember, grace and patience will be the words of the year. We're all getting back to this sort of, new normal. We haven't been in the school buildings for a year. So, any patience that you can give would be greatly appreciated for all parties involved. I'm not sure about flex days. As far as I have heard, students will be back in the building 5 days a week. They will not have a flex day. Again, COVID cases are increasing. We don't know what the fall may look like, but as of right now, students will not have flex day. They will be back in the building 5 days a week. We got some happy parents. Happy parents. Okay, we did have one question. Do you think teachers and counselors will be understanding of students' difficulty? That's a good question. Okay, so do you think teachers and counselors will be understanding of the students' difficulty to readjust after COVID experience? That's a great question. Candace, I think that might be better for you, for you to answer.
I think that counselors, teachers, everyone will be understanding. Each student is different. This is not something that is just affecting one student. This coming back from COVID is going to affect the teachers as well. So everyone is going to be understanding. This is going to be kind of like a new year for everyone. So it's going to be some challenges. There's going to be changes. So everyone, I'm sure everyone's going to just have to work together to have the best results. So.
And any insight about students wearing masks? I'm sure that you will be able to wear a mask if you have that, if you would like to, but do you have any insight about if that's going to be a requirement yet or not? Do you know?
I'm not sure. I guess we're just really going to have to wait to see what the district says. We're just all pretty much receiving the same information at the same time.
Yeah. This is a great question. We're getting an influx of questions. Thanks, guys. This is awesome. Which school year do students need to start preparing for the SAT? Candace, can you touch on this? But you
yeah,
can talk
sure.
about the PSAT as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So students will have a chance to take the PSAT basically beginning in the ninth grade. It's very important for students to take it their junior year, the PSAT, because at that point they will have a chance to qualify for national merit. But students can begin taking it as early as the ninth grade and just building up, taking it every year. There's many services that you can pay for out there to prepare for the PSAT. Crosby also will be offering SAT prep, ACT prep. So Crosby is very involved with that, and they make sure your students are prepared for the SAT as well as the ACT. I can't remember if they have PSAT assistance or tutoring.
Crosby does offer a PSAT
Okay.
prep session in the
Okay.
sophomore year. So that'll be open for sophomores and juniors for students that are going to be taking the PSAT. So you got a little bit of time to get ready for that. This question is regarding virtual academy. So there is what's called the virtual academy for students. This past year, it was just for elementary and middle school students. This upcoming year, I am not certain if it's going to be open to high school students. Again, I do know that students are being expected to be back in the school building. So that is the question. I'm going to get back with you about the virtual academy for this year for students that want to continue virtual learning. And Candace, you may have an idea. The second part of this question, will Canvas be worked into in-person school? I can imagine that teachers will still be using Canvas for their day-to-day kind of assignments and things like that, but it'll likely be a case-by-case, class-by-class basis. And Candace, you can provide any other insight.
I think we were planning to transition to Canvas prior to COVID. So I think it will still continue. Previously, before we had Canvas, there was, I forgot what it was called. At one point, it was like Haku, something to do, I can't remember the other name after that, but it's just a new message board that Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools is choosing to use. So it should still be active at this point.
Great, that's a great question. And one thing that I will say about kind of these boards and things that you're using, these portals, that's something that you're going to use in college as well. Most colleges have some sort of portal where assignments are being given or turned in. You're able to see your classes and things like that. So these things are not going away. You're going to be using them, from now until you graduate from college or graduate school. So getting into the habit of using them now is a great thing. All right, that is our last question that we have. I don't see anything else in the chat box. So we are going to go ahead and end this session. Again, I hope that you received some great information. Be on the lookout for our email series. Our first email will be going out next week, and we're going to be sending you information about what you need to know about the transcript and students' GPA as a rising freshman. What do you need to know about the transcript and the GPA? All right, so I hope that you have a great evening. We hope to see you at our next session on July the 27th, and that will be again at 5:30. That'll be hosted by Keisha Horton, the Student Services Director at Parkland. Have a great evening, everyone. I look forward to seeing you soon. And I'll hang on for just a few if you have any other last minute questions. And other than that, you are free to go.
And thanks for having me. I'll leave in case any of the parents want to ask private questions at this point.
Thanks so much, Paul. I'm going to be reaching out to you soon with an email.
Okay, great. Sounds awesome.
Thanks.
Good night.
As far as students using the microwave, that's a good question. I believe that's based on the school. Some schools do allow students to use the microwave and some schools don't. I think it really just depends on the school. Candace, you may have some.
Yes, it depends on the school.
Yeah, okay. I know at Mount Tabor, they did not let us use the microwave, but I know at Atkins, they can't they? Wasn't there?
They took the microwaves out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Never mind. So yeah, it'll definitely be based on the school. You might want to either reach out to the school around the first day of school or, wait until the first day and kind of, see what the situation is.
That'll be a good question during freshman orientation.
Perfect. That's a great point. Great point. Yes, we will make sure to have the recording of the Zoom. We're going to get it uploaded hopefully tomorrow and have it available for everyone hopefully early next week. Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. Okay, I'm going to get Candace to answer your question. I do want to stop this recording though. That might be